The Israeli government puts a lot of money and effort into whitewashing its war on Gaza. The war is one of defense. It's against a group as evil as ISIS or the Nazis. And if the world lets us carpet bomb Gaza, that will be in everyone's best interests. It's, of course, complete nonsense, but it's a message they're desperate to push. And that means they now really want their own soldiers to put down their smartphones. Several videos filmed by members of the IDF have gone viral on social media. In this video, soldiers set fire to food and water supplies in Gaza City. Remember, this is in a context where, according to the UN World Food Agency, food is so short that 9 in 10 people can't eat every day. They seem pretty proud of what they're doing too, with this soldier smiling from ear to ear. Another video shows an IDF soldier proudly destroying a stationery store in Gaza. You can see sort of throwing a snow globe across and smashing stuff. Now, this is not the sign of a counter-terror operation, but a war targeted against a people and their livelihoods. Another video featuring an IDF soldier showing off what they have found in a Gazan flat. So you can see they're not parading weapons or evidence of Hamas membership, but rather lingerie. They refer to the person who's been forced to flee their home as a whore and a slut. Right? So this is not people sort of seeking out evidence of terrorism, but rather shaming people who they have just displaced. There's also a particularly grotesque video. There's an IDF soldier mocking the fact there is no running water, and then having moved a prayer rug into a bathroom, he stands on it while defecating in a bag, which he then films himself throwing into rubble outside. The caption reads, "POV freeing Gaza." A group of IDF soldiers were also filmed dancing and singing the words, "Gaza, we have come to conquer. We know our slogan. There are no people who are uninvolved." And we've shown you that video before on this show. And elsewhere, an IDF soldier was pictured standing next to graffiti that said, "Instead of erasing graffiti, let's erase Gaza." According to the Telegraph, these videos and photos uploaded by soldiers have caused a headache for the IDF. A spokesperson told them, quote, "In any event that does not align with IDF values, command and disciplinary steps will be taken." Now, the idea of actions that align with IDF values and those which don't align is a loose one. The building those soldiers were cheering as they blew it up, as they demolished it, was a UN school. So a UN school being blown up with TNT, and then you've got a bunch of soldiers cheering. Ash, I mean, this is a war where lots of stuff is going to get uploaded. All the soldiers have phones. I mean, it seems like most of the Gazan civilians also have phones. We are seeing lots and lots of images of this war, and that does mean it's, difficult for the IDF to try and show the world that it's something that it's not. We are seeing the true nature of this war via videos uploaded to Twitter, to Facebook, to TikTok.
Well, I think that's true. And I think that there's been a real desire on the IDF's part to try and control the narrative. But one of the things that you also have to remember is that these images of psychological terrorism, of dehumanization, of violence and humiliation also serve an ideological purpose, which is to shame, harass, intimidate Palestinian people into, worst case scenario submission, best case scenario from, the Israeli state's point of view, giving up on the hope of a viable and safe state and leaving. And giving up on the hope of living in the land between the river and the sea. So I think that yes, it obviously has an impact on how many people in the international community feel, but I don't think that the IDF are so embarrassed that the thing that they really want to do is control how their soldiers are posting on social media, because it also performs a function, a quite perverse function of morale boosting. That's why you've seen all these videos of really quite shit dance, pop, EDM singers singing songs which call for, the erasing of Gaza, which routinely dehumanize Palestinians. That's the kind of ideological scaffolding and geeing up that you need in order to carry out this kind of indiscriminate warfare and ethnic cleansing. You need to utterly dehumanize your enemy, in this case the Palestinians of Gaza, and you need to sort of rev yourself up into a state where anything that's done to them is justifiable. And so I think this is something which is really important, which is people don't do evil things because they've got this sort of evil deep inside them, right? People do evil things because they exist within structures which incentivize that very evil, which incentivize abuses, which incentivize violence, which incentivize humiliation. And I think the last thing that I want to say is something which I found quite frustrating, which is often on social media, you get these pro Israel advocates sharing images which they say are from Palestine of, Palestinian children being radicalized or a Palestinian child wearing a Hamas headband, as if to sort of say, well, look at this society. It's so irredeemably evil. It's so invested in terrorism. How do you expect us to make peace with these people? Look at how they indoctrinate their own children. Look at how the hatred is taught to them from such an early age. Whereas when you see these kinds of images of IDF soldiers making TikToks of desecrating Palestinian homes, or TikToks of Israeli civilians dressing up their children to mock the Palestinians of Gaza, to put dirt on their faces and give themselves a monobrow. That's not used to say, well, look at this society, isn't it irredeemably evil? It doesn't feature in the discussions in the same way at all. Now, I'm not saying that the good and correct thing is to sort of play the same games as pro-Israel advocates do, but sort of say, well, look, this does indicate the level of racism, the level of dehumanization that permeates Israeli society and is rife in the Israeli army in order for the army to do the very thing that it's doing, which is carrying out a program of ethnic cleansing.
The IDF and Israel potentially aren't particularly embarrassed by these videos. They might see this as morale boosting for their troops and also demoralizing for the people of Gaza who ideally they would like to leave, right? So it's not necessarily the case that Israel really cares about this. I think it's very embarrassing for their Western backers because their Western backers like to pretend that Israel is something which they are not, right? Joe Biden, the UK, Sunak, they all say, oh no, it's Hamas which commit these sort of terrible, brutal war crimes. The Israelis, they hate war. They don't want to be fighting this war, but they have this burden of trying to take out this terrible terrorist group, which they have nothing to do with. It's not Israel's fault that they occupied the West Bank and put Gaza under siege, and then there was a terrorist attack, and now they're having to do an anti-terror operation where they just by accident killed 20,000 people, right? This is the line, the ridiculous line that Western governments like to take. And we show you quotes all the time. This is not what the Israelis are saying this is not what Israeli politicians are saying to the Israeli public, right? This isn't sort of a big expose in Israel. But the more Western publics are shown this, or international publics in general are shown this, the more sort of this lie that, we're just supporting this normal liberal government sort of falls apart. I think it might be the case that Netanyahu doesn't really mind if these videos sort of go viral. But I think Joe Biden and I think Rishi Sunak might be quite annoyed about it.